Some interesting news about the Retatrutide trials, and we're going to talk about how that could impact some people who are engaging in some risky behavior right now. So I haven't had the chance to confirm this. This is all anecdotal information from people who have dropped comments on my videos, people who are claiming to be involved in the clinical trials for Retatrutide. So as you may know, Retatrutide is the triple agonist, GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon receptor agonist. You've got all the GLP-1s, Ozempic, Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Rybelsus. And then you've got one medicine that stands alone as a dual agonist. That's MOUNJARO, which is a GLP-1 and GIP receptor agonist. Retatrutide is just an investigational medication, right? Which means it's in clinical trials. Hasn't been approved yet, but it's being tested by Eli Lilly and going through all the FDA checks and balances, safety checks and balances through the clinical trials. And it's currently in phase 3, which is the last phase before it goes to the FDA for approval. Now, here's where the news gets interesting and why people really ought to be aware of the bootleg versions that are floating around. So anecdotally, it sounds like some of the people who are participating in the phase 3 trial have started to follow a different dosing schedule than what was previously reported to be in the earlier phases of the trials for Retatrutide. It sounds like the dosing schedule has slowed down, so they're not dosing up as fast as they had before. And it also sounds like the max dose that people are getting now is 9 milligrams, which is interesting because it had previously been reported that 12 milligrams was the highest dose. Why might this be important? And again, remember that this is all just anecdotal information that people have dropped in my comments, so I have no way to validate this, but I think it's worth the warning anyway. The reason that Eli Lilly may have done this, if this is truly the case, is that people, we know that it was reported because we listened to the conference calls and we cover those on this channel. We know that Eli Lilly themselves have said that people have been experiencing heart arrhythmias with Retatrutide. And this is common. This is actually common for glucagon receptor agonists. This is not the first medication that's come along that has been tested as a glucagon receptor agonist. But other pharmaceutical companies have actually abandoned glucagon receptor agonists in the past because it tends to mess with people's heart a little bit more than GLP-1s do. With GLP-1s, it's very common for some people, a small number of people, to experience a little bit of tachycardia. But this is different with Retatrutide. This was heart arrhythmias that people were experiencing, again, likely because of the glucagon component. Now, how is this relevant to anybody outside the clinical trials right now? It's relevant in this way. Every single ad that I've seen for bootleg Retatrutide is 12 milligrams. And if this information is true, that Eli Lilly is abandoning the rapid dose escalation and maybe even pulling back on the highest dose to presumably reduce these issues of heart arrhythmias, what's going to happen to people who find these bootleg medications and jump right in at 12 milligrams?